Salutations acquaintances! I know it's been forever since I've made a video, because I'm not good at anything, but thanks to my good friend Small, I've finally found the motivation for this video. If you've known me for a while, then it's no secret that I'm a fan of Battle for Dream Island, a web series hosted on the channel Jack and Jellify, run by brothers Michael and Carrie Huang. In that show, there's a certain effeminate character that I love and adore to the point of calling and joking about him being my son. That character is none other than the soft pastry boy, Cake. Now, I know what most of you are thinking. Really? Really? Your palette is trash, absolute garbage, throw the whole channel away, etc., etc. And I get why. Cake is both an overhated and underrated character in BFDI, because in the 4th season, Battle for BFDI, his character was watered down to nothing more than an overly loyal and clingy fanboy of another character named Loser that literally all of the contestants adored. Or at least, that's how he seems on the surface. In this video, I'll be talking about what exactly makes Cake a great character despite having a bad reputation within the OSC. Okay fine, I'll bite. I've heard word that, similar to characters such as Gracie and Rocky, people only like Cake because he's cute. And I won't deny that's part of the reason. If you've been following this channel for a while, you know I like cute things. But that's not the sole reason I love Cake. I know he's not actually a simp like people say he is, though I definitely understand why people think that way. When most people think of Cake, they think of a whiny femboy simp whose only redeeming quality is being cute. I would know, because as I first got into the OSC, I didn't like Cake all that much, but then I started to look more into his character, and I was able to appreciate him more. There are subtle, yet powerful details that show that Cake is not only a great character, but also a tragic one that has been through more trials and challenges than most people recognize. I personally believe he has DPD, it's a type of anxious personality disorder. Cleveland Clinic describes people with the disorder as typically feeling helpless, submissive, and incapable of taking care of themselves. They may have trouble making simple decisions. People with DPD usually need someone to reassure them in everything they do, which matches Cake's personality. Some of the symptoms include difficulty starting tasks on their own, avoiding expressing disagreement or creating conflict in relationships for fear of losing the relationship, feeling uncomfortable when alone, and having a fear of abandonment and a sense of helplessness when relationships end. Now take a look at how Cake acts during the entirety of BFB. He's insecure, doesn't think he's strong or enough, leans on the people he thinks he can trust like a crutch to make himself feel better and stronger, and even when he's gotten into bad arguments with others, he still views them as his friends. For example, in BFB 13 he got into that argument with Eggy about whose connection with Loser was stronger. They were going at each other's non-existent throats, but in Teapot 1, the start of the 5th season, he still viewed Eggy as his friend, got upset when she and Clock separated, and you can tell he felt absolutely betrayed when she left him. He's clearly very forgiving towards the people that he trusts, because of his fear of being alone and helpless. Then we have Loser. Fun fact, on the BFDI wiki, Cake's character page says that it's possible Cake will get close to people but will immediately turn his back on anyone he believes is a bad influence, and I 100% support this theory. Think about it, in BFB 7, Cake said that Loser was a gone for a reason after he lied, which although is extremely out of character for him, it makes sense because wouldn't you feel devastated at the possibility of the one person you thought you could trust lying to you and or potentially using you at the same time? Besides, after the more recent episodes of BFB, the ones where Loser is trapped in the Jawbreaker with no interaction with any of his fans, and post-split BFB, where he's acting notably more arrogant than before. I've theorized that Loser was already cocky and loved the attention but did a good job at hiding it up until being isolated for so long, it became more visibly obvious he needs praise and people to love him. Compare his reaction to winners about the team being named after them for reference. But that's the thing, in like a few scenes later in that same episode, you can see Cake running away. We don't know why, but I'm convinced that he was so overwhelmed by that possibility combined with everyone's varying opinions on Loser that he needed time alone to think about everything, because from what I remember, we don't see him at all for the rest of the episode. Also, he says in the next episode that he can't do the challenge without Loser to cheer him on, proving his insecurity and anxiety, while implying that he managed to convince himself that Loser wasn't the bad guy everyone tried to make him out to be, because he feels like he needs him to feel better and as a result, is desperate to hold on to him, which is terribly sad. Now, let's talk about BFB 16, also known as The Split. 14 contestants went to finish the 4th season, and the other 40 quit to complete in the 5th season. In that episode, Loser and the other eliminated contestants try to escape the elimination area, the exit. Out of everyone, only Loser properly escaped, and everyone cheered for him. But you'll notice something. You'd think you'd see or at least hear Cake in the crowd of fans, but no. Cake and Loser didn't even interact once when he escaped. Going back to Loser becoming praise-starved for at least a year, the show was on hiatus for at least a whole year. Loser was too busy absorbing the attention from everyone else, and when Cake and Loser each chose to be on separate shows, Cake wasn't, and still hasn't, been upset about being apart from Loser. He actually seemed happy with this choice all the way through. Now, I know Pokey, Teapot's former showrunner, said that the team wasn't thinking about continuity when arranging Teapot, they just chose characters they wanted to see. However, I've come to believe that Cake saw the way Loser was acting, and his doubts about Loser being fake came back to him. That's part of why he decided to join Teapot, partially because of what Fanny said about For doing something bad, but I'm convinced he was mainly using that as a cover-up for wanting to not be in the same show as Loser out of distrust and fear of his suspicions coming true, though I also think that what was left of his loyalty was still there and he still felt bad about leaving, so he wanted a roundabout reason for leaving the show. None of this is confirmed so far, but it makes sense to me, so that's my guess. Keep in mind, Loser didn't even talk to him once, so sadly, that kinda confirms his suspicions, because they're supposed to be best buds, but really, it didn't enter his mind at all. That's why he hasn't mentioned Loser at all during Teapot, because he didn't trust him. Also, remember, Cake struggles with self-esteem and confidence. I believe he didn't want to lean on others the way he did with Loser anymore out of fear of repeating his mistakes, and because he wanted to try to change and be stronger without a crutch. Although he had a rough start in Teapot 1 and 2, he displays this in Teapot 3 and onwards through his subtle newfound independence. But of course, realizing a need to change does not mean your personality immediately changes and your problems are fixed. It takes time and effort to change, so despite getting better, he still tends to lean on his friends, as seen when he was devastated when Price Tag just bailed on the team during Teapot 2, and getting close to his new teammates, though not to the extreme that he did with Loser. Fast forward 5 episodes, and Cake was eliminated with the least amount of votes to stay in the game for his team. But happily for me, his elimination to a degree confirmed for me that his mindset was similar to what I was thinking, as seen by this clip.
But just not. I have to say, it was great being on a team, not just in Loser's shadow. It was fun to just play, for us!
And that's a personal win in my book, because it proves to me that Cake was not a wasted potential character like I worried he would be. Teapot wasn't doing anything interesting with Cake in particular, so I was very scared he was going to be a bland character that everyone hated for floating throughout the game. Thankfully, that was not the case, and they ended his character arc nicely with a newfound self-confidence. He's noticeably happier, and he doesn't need to lean on his peers anymore to feel some kind of self-worth. Though, I really hope there's a 6th season of BFDI. I hope Cake is in the cast so they can expand on his character more. It would be nice to see this confidence in action, and I'd like to see his interactions with other characters, specifically Loser. It would be interesting to see how Loser would take the news that his biggest fan made the changes he needed and moved on. And that'll do it for my Cake theory. Keep in mind, this isn't confirmed by any of the creators, this is just my thought process of what Cake could have been thinking and going through during the show, and I wanted to share that thought process to spread awareness that Cake actually is an interesting character and is more than meets the eye. I hope I did him justice in this video, but even if you don't agree with my theory, that's fine. At the very least, I hope you came out of this with a new perspective to look at and dwell on, because it's always cool to see people talk about characters you don't particularly care about, but they do, and they notice the deeper aspects of their character that you otherwise would never have caught on to. Thank you so much for making it this far. I really enjoyed talking about this. I was kind of nervous at first, but this was fun. Though I'm more than likely to go dead silent again after this video drops, so don't expect me to start posting regularly LOL. Remember to respect each other's opinions, it's just a goofy little show, after all, and have a grandest night everybody. Bye!